Hello friends, welcome back to Sack's Garage. I am Sack and this is my very messy garage. We're not going to talk about that. And this is Holly. If you remember from the last video, she was just a little puppy. She's now 5 months and 50 pounds. Holly, say hi to everybody. Yeah, hi. We're going to hang out outside today. It's about 75 degrees, a little humid, but not bad. We're ignoring the mess. Anyway, we're going to pick up where we left off. We talked to the builder of this kit, and they gave us dimensions. We'll show you that on the computer, and we'll go from there. All right, so here's the diagram that they sent. If you have something that's more difficult or complicated, they'll actually send you a printout that you can use to trace on your frame. But what we're looking at here is the upper shock mounts there, cut out 4x2. And then on the Crossmember here, cut out 2x3. You'll notice that there's a little notch on the inside right there. And I'll show you that notch on the steel, but that notch does two things for reference. One, it references the bottom of this upper shock mount, so it's parallel, so that's something you can reference. But it also references the center of the spindle. So rather than our original plan of putting the engine on and trying to get it all mounted up, what we're going to do is we'll just measure the spindle height with our front wheels that we have, and we can weld this in without having to drop the motor on it first. So let's go ahead and go get started on that. All right, we're back out in the garage now. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I jacked it up to about what it's going to look like. So spindle height is obviously arbitrary right now while it's on the jack stands. But if we draw straight across, you can see here, there's that little notch right there, and it lines up with the bottom of that. So we're gonna cut out what we need to cut out and go from there. Just like that, we've got our template. All right, got our cuts done. It took about an hour and a half and 4 cutoff wheels, but this is what it's gonna look like when it's done. So we got our 2x4 channel in there. That's just a piece of scrap for now. The spindle is about at that notch height right now for the test here, just to see how it lines up. But the fit is pretty good. Gotta cut a little bit of that off, but the game plan is to get this up on both of these floor jacks. That way we can move it around and adjust left and right side, up and down, forward and back itself. And then what we're going to do is take the front clip, which has been sitting in the grass over there, bolt that back on, as well as the wheels to the spindles there. That way we can go ahead and set the exact position, and then we can go ahead and measure from there out how far out we need to come and at what angle, all that good stuff. We'll go ahead and plate this off on either side and then start doing some fabrication. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, here's where I'm at. There's too many moving pieces, so the floor jacks didn't work, so I got out the engine hoist and rigged it up, and I've got it somewhat in place, but again, there's just so many moving pieces. It goes up, down, the frickin' rotors keep rotating around, and so this whole knuckle swivels and just like flips this whole piece over. I'm kinda at a loss right now as far as what I want to do. Part of me is saying screw it, unbolt everything, and just do the cross member. I know that this notch needs to be a 12 3/4 for the spindle height, and then I can just line it up with the frame there, front and back, and then I can put the front clip on, make sure I measure the forward back distance, and that would be fine. I could even mark on the floor since the truck's not moving with a plumb bob or something. But this is a problem for tomorrow. I'm gonna unhook this, think about it, and we'll reattack tomorrow. All right, it's the following day. Welcome back to my nightmare. After we logged off yesterday, we played around with some ratchet straps and actually got it to stay decently stable. So the plan is we're going to jack up the Crossmember here with the jack stands, or not the jack stands, the floor jacks, to set it at our proper ride height. And then what we're gonna do is actually box these off first, get a template, or not a template, but a mounting point. Then we're gonna bring this whole assembly in, get it set, and then we can cut our pieces and weld. We know that the bottom of these notches is 12 3/4 because that's what our spindle height is. So that should make measuring and everything pretty simple, because we know that this is 12 3/4, this is 12 3/4, and then ideally this should be able to be 12 3/4. Actually, let's try real quick. Got a tape measure. So 12 3/4 is actually going to be right at the bottom of this. So that should be able to come out pretty easy and just come a straight shot out. So with some a little bit of fabrication, we should be able to get this done today, hopefully. Not going to make any promises because everything takes twice as long and is always twice as expensive as you think. So let's get started. You're trying to steal my 10mm. If you can find it, that'd be great, because I don't know where it's at. Somewhere in this pile of tools. Anyway. Alright, got these prepped up. Just some grinding here. We'll probably have to plate this just for some extra strength, since there was, you know, a lightning hole there. Actually, I think that was for brake lines and fuel lines, whatnot. Anyway, got our cardboard template cut out, nice. You know, obviously some little gaps around the edge, but when we come in with the plasma cutter to cut our plate out, make it just a little bit big. That way we can grind off what we need and make it a nice smooth fit. We'll come in, mount it, get the angle finder out, make sure that's a nice vertical in there, since we tried to make this cut vertical, but you never know. Okay, so the issue I ran into there, I didn't get the cleanest cuts, is this is a pretty thick piece of metal and I went way too fast with the gun, so I had to go back over it 2 or 3 times. My template was good, but my cuts weren't great here, even using the straight edge. The ceramic cup doesn't like dragging along that metal of the straight edge there, so we're gonna go and put these in the vise and clean them up, so that they're nice and flat, get all the slag off. All right, those bad boys are welded up front and back. Obviously the welds are not the best. That's what happens when you use flux core. But anyway, they're in there. Because we know that this is 12 3/4 is what we're shooting for the bottom. Let me show you here. It's like right at the bottom of this. So I'm gonna come in with the grinder and just flatten out all these welds here so we have a nice flat mounting surface. On this side, I didn't cut the frame very well, so we're gonna come through and take off that little tab there as well. Make it nice and flush, that way we can get a good mounting surface. Also, our 10-pound spool of welding wire is almost gone. You can start to see the black between the wires there, so just enough to get some tacks in if we get this finished up today, but we need to buy more welding wire. All right, that's all ground down, looking good, ready to mount, but we have a problem. Okay, let's talk about this real quick. So, this tubing that I have here, pretty easy to tell now, but in my head, for the months and months and months I've been playing this, I thought I had 2x4. That's actually 2x3. So when I gave the guy that designed this kit the dimensions to cut all of this out, I gave him 2x4 instead of 2x3. Luckily, this dimension down here is fixed. It's supposed to line up with the notch over to there, over to the wheel height. So that matches. But we're going to be an inch short up here. So what we need to do actually now is go to all four corners of the shock towers and add another inch material back on here. Because what it's supposed to do is, let me see if you guys can see this. The bottom of the shock tower mount is supposed to line up with the bottom of the frame rail, which then corresponds to both the wheel height and the notch. So with the current cut that I have, I'm an inch off. What I need to do is get that back down there by adding an inch back in there. Rather than try to set it an inch high and then just plate it, I want to be able to set this down and get the right geometry, because there's a 4-degree angle actually built in to the way these are cut. So there's actually a little bit more height here on this side than there is on the back side over there. So that is my confession for the day. I screwed up. I'm actually trying to decide right now what I want to do first. I think I want to keep pressing with getting this stuff set up, because that's harder and it's a nice day out. So we're going to keep pressing to get the channel put in. So we're going to clean up all of our workspace here that we just did. Lots of grinding and welding, plasma cutting. And then we're going to try to get this back where it needs to go. All right, here we are. We've got it in. We've got it fairly close. The big thing that I was looking for here is the forward and back spacing. So I've got the wheels a little bit back, but the knuckles are tilted a little bit back like that. So I've deliberately put it just slightly back in the wheel well. You can see that side there is a little bit shorter than this gap here, and it should fill in about where it should when it gets in. Anyway, like I was having issue before, there's just too many moving parts in here. So what we're gonna do is I measured, let me show you with the tape measure here with a reference point. So from the back side here to this cross member here, I'm looking for 15.5 inches. Okay, so I know that's supposed to be 15.5 inches, and I know that these are supposed to be 12 3/4 down here. That gives me a forward and back, up and down, and then I set the left and right based off of these frame rails here to make them even with the old frame, because I know that that's symmetric. And then we're good to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all of this crap off. So I'm going to pull the front clip back off. I'm going to disconnect everything from the engine hoist. I'm going to pull the lower control arm mount off. That way it's just the cross member. We can get it on 2 jack stands, get it nice and level, and then get our frame built. All right, friends, it's all welded in. The 2 floor jack trick worked great. Much more stable. Having all those pivot points, so you basically had the lower control arm plus the knuckle on the lower control arm plus the wheel tried to rotate. So that was 3 on either side. It was just too many pivot points to try to take care of at one time. Anyway, got this all nice and welded up. Well, not welded up, it's tacked in. I got tacks just on the front there, and then I ran out of wire just before I got to that corner right there. So my 10-pound spool that I've had for probably 3 or 4 years now finally passed. We'll have to get a new one. I know that the 2-pound rolls are super expensive now, so I can only imagine how much a 10-pound is. But we will get that and continue on with our project. Like I said, we need to fix those upper shock tower mounts. We're off by an inch, so that's going to be the next thing to tackle. And then from there, we can get that all welded in, get the front suspension on, and then hopefully get this thing off to get a roll cage. That's the next big thing. Got to get that roll cage in. That will basically help square this off and tie it in up top to give it extra rigidity, and that should be good for us as far as making sure that this is nice and solid. Just having that right there isn't super great, but having the extra bar coming up to be square is really what we need. So until next time, have a great day.